Welcome back, everyone. On behalf of Forge College, I am super excited to kick off this explainer. If you caught our last lesson on the principles of role management, you know we tackled some pretty high-level, big-picture ideas about who gets to do what in a smart contract. But today we're rolling up our sleeves and getting our hands dirty with a concrete, real-world security blueprint. We are talking about the OnlyOwner functionality. Think of it as installing the absolute ultimate, unbribable deadbolt on your smart contract's front door.
Here's our flight plan for locking things down today. First, we'll meet our VIP bouncer. Then we'll actually build the smart contract, test our security rules, learn how to avoid some common pitfalls, and wrap up by transferring the VIP keys.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1. Meet the VIP bouncer, the ultimate access control.
So we're taking those abstract roles we learned about and turning them into hard code. And we're starting with literally the most unbribable security guard in all of Web3. When we talk about centralizing authority into an explicit owner, we mean creating a single point of absolute control. Now, this simplifies our logic tremendously, but it also concentrates our risk, which is exactly why we absolutely have to get this right. The crucial thing to remember here is that this modifier acts exactly like a giant VIP bouncer holding a guest list with just one single name on it. This bouncer checks IDs at the door by looking at the message sender, the address actually trying to call the function. It compares that ID against the one owner storage slot. Match, you're in. Don't match, bam, instant rejection. There's no bribing this guy, no smooth talking your way in, just a hard, swift no.
Moving right along to Section 2, building the smart contract, drafting the owned blueprint. Let's head over to the drafting board and see how we actually build this from the ground up, keeping all our logic perfectly centralized. Because look, we want our function bodies to stay clean and readable, right? We definitely don't want security checks scattered all over the place like clothes in a messy teenager's bedroom. So we build this in 3 highly logical steps. Step 1, we hire the bouncer by declaring the owner state variable right there in the constructor when the contract is deployed. Step 2, we lay down the strict rules by creating our reusable OnlyOwner modifier. And step 3, we put that bouncer to work, placing them directly in front of our sensitive functions, like a function that sets a critical system value.
In this brilliant little line of code right here, it illustrates the core logic inside that modifier perfectly. It literally says, require that the message sender is exactly equal to the owner. If they aren't, the bouncer yells, only owner, and immediately reverts the entire transaction. That little text string at the end, only owner, is your explicit revert message. And trust me, as we'll see in just a second, that message is going to become your absolute best friend when you are writing tests.
Which brings us to Section 3, testing our security rules, stress testing the bouncer.
Okay, so now that our bouncer is officially on duty, you've got to test their reflexes. It's just not enough to write the code and hope they do their job. You have to actively simulate both the boss walking in to make sure they actually get through and those sneaky hackers trying to kick down the door in disguise. In the testing world, we call these the happy path and the failure path. A passing owner call on the happy path proves capability. Basically, it proves the boss can actually run the business. But a failing non-owner call on the failure path, that proves enforcement. It proves the bouncer isn't asleep on the job. This is exactly why testing both paths is absolutely critical to your security setup. You literally have to prove rejection just as rigorously as you prove acceptance.
Let's take a look at the actual test code for that failure path. When a malicious actor, which we've labeled here as other, tries to bypass the bouncer and set a value, your test must explicitly assert that exact only owner revert message. Why is that so important? Well, think about it. If the transaction fails for some completely random reason, like, you just ran out of gas, a generic test might accidentally pass. That would give you a false sense of security, making you think your access control worked when it really didn't. You need to ensure the exact right trap was actually sprung.
Now for Section 4, avoiding common pitfalls. When the bouncer errs. Even the very best bouncers can mess up if you give them bad instructions. So let's look at a few ways developers accidentally sabotage their own access controls, turning an impenetrable fortress into, a flimsy screen door. When you look at these mitigations, it's pretty wild how such simple fixes can prevent total catastrophic failures. Take an uninitialized owner, for instance. That means nobody is on the guest list, or even worse, the 0 address is. You fix that simply by setting the owner to the message sender right in the constructor. Then, oh boy, there's the notorious tx.origin mistake. Hackers absolutely love this one. The golden rule here, Always use the message sender for your access checks. Never tx.origin, otherwise a malicious contract could easily trick your bouncer. And finally, avoid scattered checks. Centralize them in that single, reusable modifier we just built, so you don't accidentally forget to protect a brand new function down the line.
Finally, Section 5, transferring the VIP keys, secure handoffs.
So, what happens when the boss steps down, retires to a tropical beach somewhere, and needs to securely pass those VIP keys to a brand new owner? You're going to need a really secure handoff mechanism. For this, you use an owner-restricted transfer function. Notice the OnlyOwner modifier in the code there? That ensures only the current boss gets to name the new boss. Plus, this function requires a valid new address, because, yeah, you definitely don't want to accidentally hand the keys over to the void. And it loudly emits an OwnershipTransferred event. Emitting these events is a huge deal. It provides absolute runtime visibility and transparency on the blockchain, meaning auditors and users can easily track those state transitions as they happen.
All right, to summarize our engineering blueprint for today, always centralize your ownership logic in a modifier to avoid making a scattered mess. Test every single path relentlessly, and yes, that means testing both the success of the owner and the explicit rejection of the non-owner. Document your state changes with clear events so the blockchain has a solid public record. And, for the love of all things Web3, please never use tx.origin for your access checks.
Seriously, if you take just one rule away from this entire explainer, let it be this incredibly powerful engineering principle: centralized permission predicates. By keeping all your access logic bundled up in one place, any future updates, like, say, if you decide to upgrade from a single owner to a fancy multi-signature wallet, only require touching a single, highly secure location in your code. It makes everything cleaner, infinitely safer, and so much easier to audit. Before we wrap up, I'm going to leave you pondering a genuinely terrifying scenario. What happens if the boss retires, uses the transfer function we just built, but accidentally sends the keys to a typo address? Just one wrong letter and boom, the contract is locked forever. How on earth do we prevent that? Well, consider this a tease for our next lesson on secure ownership transfer, where we are going to solve that exact nightmare scenario with a smart two-step claim process. Until then, make sure to visit forge.college to dive deeper into this topic and continue mastering Web3 security. On behalf of Forge College, thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and happy coding!